G'day everyone, today I've got a complete list of 38 tips and tricks to get you through the awesome new world of Enshrouded, so let's go. Starting with one for the rangers who constantly run out of arrows like me. Nests and burrows can be mined with a pickaxe for twigs. I usually get 25 twigs per nest and upwards of 200 twigs if you dig out a whole burrow, which will yield around 700 arrows per burrow. It's enough to break my pickaxe at least and get stuck in the burrow. And that leads to my next point. I'm sure you all know by now to use the pickaxe to get through or over terrain. But if you break your pickaxe, or you don't have one on you, don't be afraid to use your explosives in a pinch. They clear terrain really effectively. While I'm giving the rangers tips, at the time of making this video, these three nodes are actually dexterity, even though they say they give endurance on the tooltip. This did my head in trying to work out why my stats didn't add up. I think these are in fact just tooltip errors, because it would make sense that this tree would have 2 dex and 2 endurance, rather than what the tooltips would suggest as 3 endurance and only 1 dex. So hopefully we don't lose these points. The spike traps in the tower puzzles can just be jumped normally. At first I was sprinting and rolling between safe zones, but I realized you can just literally jump them. Jump when you see the spikes poke out a little of the ground, and you won't get stunned by the following strike. You could do this all day if you needed to. You can actually use the flame altar and hammer mode to deconstruct existing buildings for free resources. I find this really useful if I want to check what building material something is that I see out in the world and I like, because there are so many building options to be aware of, or farming the more valuable or annoying resources like getting a few roof tiles if I can't be bothered to go farm clay back in Revelwood. Take note, you must use this top row in the hammer mode and then right click to deconstruct. Next, be sure to keep an eye out for suspicious rubble piles like this. Once I started noticing them and searching them with a pickaxe, I'd often find loot chests with really good rewards. If you're a strength user, be sure to remember this town. It has a heap of hazelnut trees which give 3 strength and get you through most of the mid-game. The trees remain after picking them, and you can come back after 30 minutes to get them again, although you won't need to do this because one visit usually gives you around 80 hazelnuts, which last a while. Next I've got one specific to the skill Begone, which knocks back enemies and stuns them when you use an unarmed attack. The problem you might get is that to use this you need to have an empty slot on your action bars to swap to unarmed when you want to use this, but whenever you pick stuff up it auto fills in, and then when you need it in combat you can't swap to being unarmed. Very annoying. The solution is to simply put a stack of rocks or other resource into your action bar, which will also give you an unarmed attack when you equip them. And this will reserve the spot on your action bar so you can always swap to unarmed in combat. Keep a reserve flame altar that you don't make a base with so that wherever you are, you can just craft and pop down a flame altar, fast travel back to your main base to reset, then travel back and extinguish the altar, keep exploring and repeat. If you find yourself stuck in the Kindle Wastes or Highlands with no stone, and can't find any because it's mostly sandstone and limestone up there, the paved roads around the map are always an easy source of stone. Quick one, you can craft while gliding, so take that time on long glides to top up on your arrows or prep your next flame altar. In your skill tree, don't be baited by these skills that say gain 1 attribute per 2 levels of the flame. These only give 2, not 3 as you might think from being flame level 6. But even then, these are numerically worse per skill point invested, giving 2 stats per 5 skill points, compared to all the small nodes which are 1 to 1. Don't take these unless you desperately want what's behind them is my recommendation. When exploring the Shroud and you don't have long left on your timer, keep an eye out on the map for spot heights. You can see these as tiny spots of different colour to the rest of the Shroud. As you explore, just use these to poke out above the fog and reset your timer. You can build foundation blocks and immediately deconstruct them to quickly and precisely dig terrain, say if you're building a basement or something. Yes, you can do this with the terrain option, but it's smaller and I find it much harder to dig precisely with it, often clipping outside my neat little square that I'm trying to build. I find the building foundations, because they snap to each other, they're a lot easier to keep it neat and tidy. At this point, if you are not using magic chests yet, you are doing it wrong. These give the most quality of life out of anything in the game. Magic chests allow you to use the resources in them from anywhere in the base without having to take them out and put them in the inventory. It's an actual game changer, never use normal chests again. While I'm on the topic of inventories, make sure you know about the Shift-R keybind. This will check what items are stored in any given chest and deposit all items of that type from your inventory. So if you keep things in certain chests, you can just open them all one by one and hit Shift-R. Big time saver. Even if you're not a ranger main desperate for twigs, always check vulture nests. Vultures actually hunt Vukka, and so the nests always have a corpse or 2 you can loot in them as well. One for the beginners next. Use lots of bandages. Bandages do percentage health based healing, so they remain useful the entire game. They are super cheap to make from anywhere, and I recommend always exploring with at least 1 stack of them. Abuse gliding momentum to navigate steep terrain. You would have noticed the landing animation after gliding has a significant roll on it. You can exploit this to get up steep cliffs or stuff just outside jump range by double tapping to glide straight back into the cliff to trigger that roll, which gets you a lot further. Another one for the beginners. In the early game, keep an eye out for wells and anvils when exploring. Wells are a great source of water which you need constantly all throughout the game, and anvils will keep your equipment repair topped up. Later in the game you can make your own wells, but until then this makes a big difference. And if you can't find an anvil when your gear breaks, keep a workbench in your inventory. You can repair with this wherever you are and pick it back up so you don't waste materials. I always travel with a workbench. You do need an altar though, but I always travel with a reserve altar anyway. Destroy containers as you explore. This is particularly useful in the early game to get resources like metal scrap. Just destroy everything you come across in camps and towns, as most of it will drop materials. Even later in the game, the ceramic jars around forts and towers in particular often have really valuable materials in them right throughout the game. You can see these giving me potions, leather, fabric, and even refined ingots. On that, make sure you check all buildings as you clear towns and camps. They will often have loot chests with weapons or armor and lots of inanimate objects which you can smash for even more materials like I just mentioned. Always interact with books and notes even if you're not paying attention to the story. Many of these trigger quests and places of interest on your map, so it's always worth your time to interact with them. When looking for ore veins, there are often these very small ones on the surface, but they're actually quite big underground. Even just a small patch like this can yield a huge amount of materials, so don't underestimate them if you're looking for resources. One for the newest beginners. Don't underestimate the value of Constitution, and I recommend your very first 2 skill points going straight into these 2 nodes. You start the game with 100 health, and with your very first 2 points, you can either give yourself like 10% damage, or you can double your health, noting that each constitution is 50 health. In addition, your meat buff in the early game is only 1 constitution. You are giving yourself double the early game food buff permanently. So relatively, the value of con early in the game is greater than any other node. Blocking has an internal cooldown. After dropping your shield, you can't pull it back up for a moment. Make sure you understand this. If you drop your shield during an enemy's combo, you're going to eat the entire rest of the combo because you can't whip your shield straight back up. Another one for the new players who haven't noticed yet, you should run on the roads when you can because it gives you a buff called On the Road, which reduces your stamina expenditure. Always carry a stack of lockpicks on you. You often come across locked chests and doors. They are only 2 scrap, but when you need them and you don't always have scrap on you. Bonus tip, if you craft them at the blacksmith rather than yourself, they are only 1 scrap for whatever reason. Mark key resources and locations on your map. With the latest update, after 30 minutes of not entering an area, everything will respawn, including burrows. Can you tell I play a ranger? Mark up those nests and burrows, ranger mains. But also, you should probably mark loot chests too, especially the max level ones you find in the Kindle Wastes for farming the best gear. Take note though, worlds don't respawn every 30 minutes within your flame altar area. So if you are farming a particular chest, make sure your flame altar area is away from the chest or it won't respawn loot. Use elixir potions as often as you can. 1 minute is nothing compared to the payoff of 30% damage. And if you're worried about Shroud time, counteract it with Shroud Survival Flask. They can both be active at the same time. On that, make sure you know that the Shroud Survival Flask needs to be used before you enter the Shroud. It won't apply once you're in there like the tooltip would suggest. While the Beastmaster specialization might read to be fairly underwhelming, there is an effect that isn't explained on the tooltips, which is that you can order animals or Vuka to guard you, and then they follow you around. The specialization is still pretty underwhelming, but at least this adds some value and a bit more utility. If your rested bonus expires before you're ready to return to base and reset, just make a campfire for 3 wood and put it down in any tent or structure you come across to quickly get your rested back. Some of these actually have pretty high comfort bonuses too. You can also use any bed you find, even without a fire, to pass the night quickly while out exploring. One for the beginners to understand is that the game doesn't actually have iframes when dodge rolling like you might think it would, as it's similar to Souls-like combat in every other regard. You can't roll through attacks. You need to just use dodge to actually dodge enemies' attacks and animations. Use ceilings instead of foundations. There is no functional requirement to use foundations, they are simply thicker for 4 times the cost. Unless you want the thickness for some reason, use ceilings as floors for a fraction of the material cost. A quick but important one. As soon as you gather flax for the first time, start farming it. Flax is required consistently all the way through the mid and late game to make some of the best armor. And finally, if you're not a fan of building systems in games like this, and they're not for everyone, you can simply take over existing villages and structures. Drop a flame altar in there, clean it up a bit, put your workbenches and NPCs in, and it's yours. They often come with high comfort too, thanks to all the random candles and furniture. And that's it everyone. If you learned at least something new, please drop a like and subscribe, or let me know what you thought in the comments. Thanks for listening everyone. Cheers.